what should we be doing when we are feeling this anxiety and this fear and this tension and this exhaustion, and whether it's with our children or with ourselves, how should we walk ourselves through the process so we can calm down, regulate, and be in touch with the higher aspects of ourselves, those Chabad aspects that you spoke about?
So that's a great question. First of all, it's like with anything, the more you practice, the better you get at it. So nothing is a quick fix. There are no quick fixes. This is like, if it's important to you to become more regulated and say grown up, then you need to invest in this. It's a bit like learning to run, you want to run a marathon. Someone, I could tell you, it's so easy how to run a marathon. You just run every day for a little bit more. And after 6 months, you'll be running, the whole thing. But it's actually doing the work that makes the difference. It's very simple for me to tell you, but really the people who put the practice in every day, they're going to notice gradual, it's going to get easier and easier and easier. And the space between stimuli and response is going to get longer and longer and longer. And their capacity to have more quicker awareness and bring themselves out of anxiety and into presence much, much quicker. So I'm going to tell you some techniques, but they really are only worth anything if they are practiced, like with anything in life. So there's regulation needs to happen on the level of nefesh, ruach, and neshama, like I said, body, breath, and mind. Because if, for example, I just do a regulation technique, which just involves my mind, but my body is still in a state of anxiety. So my mind could feel very clear, but my body can feel very uptight. And that's not going to last very long at some point, because my body feels uptight, my mind's going to start racing again. If I just calm my body down, but my mind is racing again, then very quickly after I finished calming down my body, very quickly the racing mind is going to again create more agitation in the body. So I need to really address all three levels of my soul to create a lasting sense of groundedness inside of myself. So there's regulation techniques that help the body, regulation techniques that help the breath, and regulation techniques that help the mind. So what helps the body is, for example, any form of physical exercise that burns off adrenaline and cortisol. Like, this is why people feel so great after they work out. Any form of stretching, any form of burning off that excess energy. If I'm tired, to sleep, eating nourishing food that's going to regulate my nervous system, like I was talking about earlier. Those foods. There are certain foods that help my nervous system to settle. There are certain foods that create more adrenaline inside of my nervous system. So really biologically looking after myself, basically enough sleep, enough water, enough exercise, the basic taking care of my human needs. And also things like cold water is very, for some people, not everyone, like a cold shower or cold water therapy can be very helpful to down-regulating the nervous system. And there's many different other techniques, for example, different eye movements that are helpful. Like one of them, for example, is rolling the eyes around the periphery, like looking as far as you can to the left, all the way up to the ceiling, and just basically rolling your eyes to the edges. That can help very quickly to bring people down into more balance. Drinking water can help. This is some very putting music on and dancing, anything that shifts the energy and burns off adrenaline and also shifts the nervous system states. The reason why the eye thing works, by the way, is because when a person's in a fight-flight response, they become very fixated, like tunnel vision on what's in front of them and what they need to do. And when you actually move your eyes to the peripheries, you actually broaden the muscles behind the eyes and you open them, which means that your body thinks that you're now moving into a safe space now, because you wouldn't do that if you were in danger, right? So there are certain techniques like that working with the particular muscles, like opening up diaphragms, because the diaphragms tighten when we're in a fight-flight response. So stretching out your diaphragms, like stretching out your hips, stretching out, because there's a diaphragm in your pelvis area, diaphragms underneath your ribs, diaphragms in the base of your skull. That's why when a person's stressed all the time, they'll get headaches. Also diaphragms behind the eyes, and all the diaphragms are connected in the body. So when I stretch out one, when one opens, they all open. So massaging under your ribs can help, stretching like your legs out can help, things like that, to really help release tension in your body. Shaking your hands and legs, just shaking like this, can just help move the energy. So these are all hanging upside down also is one, or just lying on your back with your legs up against the wall. This also gets blood moving in different ways. It all works on a biological level. So that's the biological level. Then the level of breath is very much around, there's the exhale stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. The inhale stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, which means that when a person's stressed, they're going to be inhaling more than they exhale. So that those big gasps of someone who's in terror, having a panic attack, that's the sympathetic nervous system, where there's very little breath to exhale. and there's that's the fear breath. But then when we call
Mm.
the sigh of relief, when we're like, oh,
Mm.
phew, and that's the exhale. So when we can lengthen our exhales, we're telling our body that we're safe. So
Mm.
taking a straw and just blowing through the straw for as long as you can, or just
Mm.
whistling or singing, all of these are all humming. These are all ways of lengthening your exhales, or just trying your best to exhale for as long as you can, like draw out
Mm.
slow, long exhales, 10 to 15, 20 seconds exhaling. Then you inhale again, and then you continue. And if you breathe like that for about 5 or 10 minutes, your body will already start down regulating. So that's the body and the breath.
Mhm.
And then there's the mind. So the animal soul, the survival instinct part of the mind is really the part of the mind that's trying to figure out how to keep you safe in any given situation. It's trying to be, its primary drive is to be in control, because if I'm in control, then I'm safe. And so really the truth is that there's so many things in life that we don't have control over. So this
Mm.
is why we struggle so much, because we're trying to
For
control stuff
sure.
that we don't have control over. and
Absolutely.
and a lot of our work in life is to really learn what it means to trust. And genuinely speaking, the word trust is really a full embodied experience of a parasympathetic nervous system state of, like, that's what trust is. Trust is not a word, it's not an idea. It is, there is a sikha where the Rebbe speaks about that what is bitachon. It's like the serenity of the person. There's an
Mm.
actual sense of serenity in the body, that it's a full body experience. It's not just in my head I'm saying I trust, I trust, I trust, but really I'm
Mm.
anxious in my body. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. So it's a full
So
body experience.
when you say trust, you're saying you mean trusting in God, not in other people, or are you saying trust in others?
So I would say, before you even begin saying trust in, I would say
Mm.
trust as a frequency. Like,
Mm.
am I
Mm.
in trust? Trust would be, am I in a parasympathetic nervous system state?
Mhm.
Or am I trying to protect myself because I'm scared? Right.
Mhm.
So again, taking you, of course, you can say, and ultimately, I'm trusting in God. I'm trusting that God is going to take care of me, and therefore I don't have to worry about this or take control. However, someone who doesn't yet believe in God or whatever it is, there's just, and as I said, a lot of my training was with people who weren't Jewish, and their
Mhm.
sense was just trusting life, just
Mhm.
trusting that it's okay to be present right now, to be in the
Mhm.
present moment, trusting the flow of things coming and going, letting
Mhm.
go of the superficial attachments to things. Like, this is the kind of language that they speak of. It's very similar to that of Hasidus,
Mhm.
same language, except, like, English words,
Mhm.
but this is really what they speak about. This idea of trusting. They call it the flow of life, which is basically God is the flow of life.
Mhm.
So yes, exactly the same thing. But the frequency of trust is really where the body is moving at, like, a more coherent rhythm. Everything is I'm here right now, and
Mhm.
I'm fully present, and I'm just showing up with my full rest and restore mode, which means my full prefrontal cortex function is online. My heart is open. I'm relaxed and I'm present, and I'm really, all my awareness is online. I'm able to really assess how I want to show up to the situation with full choice.
Mhm.
This would be a state of trust,
Right.
parasympathetic state.
Wow.
Right.
Mhm.
So the last piece, which is the mind. So I was saying the mind races when I'm trying to figure out how to keep myself safe. So these are a few techniques. There are many, many techniques that help regulate the mind. And this is what a lot of therapy focuses on. A lot of therapies are top down focused. And then there are therapies that are bottom up focused, more like breath work or somatic work and things like that. I've trained
Mhm.
in both top down and bottom up therapies, and I use them together. I see that you can't really use one without the other. But a lot of traditional psychotherapy is top down. And a lot
Mhm.
of that is connected with, first of all, becoming curious and self-aware, doing things that open up the prefrontal cortex function. So focusing my attention on getting curious about what's happening, like, oh wow, that's so interesting. I'm noticing that I'm afraid of this right now. Huh, that's interesting. And every time a thought comes into my head of any kind of I would say stress-based thought that comes with a belief or a story, like, you're such an idiot, you're such a failure, how could you have done that, what's wrong with you, like, this is a sympathetic nervous system thought process. This is not a prefrontal cortex thought process. To turn on my prefrontal cortex, I can kind of, like, almost look at it and say, huh, interesting perspective. That
Mhm.
really turns on my chachma. It's like, huh, interesting. You think I'm an idiot and a failure right now. Interesting. Right? So
Mhm.
when you start doing that, you bring online this your self-awareness. And when you bring online your self-awareness, you can start doing parts work, which is more like a kind of IFS, noticing a part of me is really anxious right now. A part of me is really scared right now. A part of
Mhm.
me is really angry right now. And and the more you just notice that and become aware of it, the more your mind starts regulating. And of course, you're going to need to go into more depth, perhaps in a therapy session with someone or by yourself, to recognize that, why am I so afraid of that? And why is that
Mm,
bothering me so much? And what are my belief systems behind this? But this is the whole process of therapy, really,
mhm,
to unpack all of that and bring ourselves back into alignment. So there are many mind down techniques. But these are some of the like, I would say, the best ways of short circuiting the mind going on a
I'm
rampage,
not
and
right,
bring online the prefrontal cortex, just by observing, watching, getting curious, and having compassion as well is really important. Just like, wow, I'm really stressed right now. So interesting. I'm noticing those
right,
parts of myself getting really scared, and kind of giving them a hug or something like that. It's a little more complicated than that, depending on what relationship you have with yourself. But that's what good therapy would help you sort out. So
mhm,
this is how you're going to be regulating on all three
mhm,
levels. And then the thing is that you need to practice that ongoing, like every
mm,
day, to do, when notice you start having to learn how to notice when your nervous system starts to clench up. So first of all, you need to have I'd say a baseline for understanding what a parasympathetic nervous system feels like. This could be a lot of work to get there. Once you
mhm,
get it, then you start noticing when you lose it, and then noticing what things make you and put you in position of losing it, and then figuring out, again, becoming aware as you're losing it, what are the things that bring me back. So learning the switch,
mhm,
learn the things that take me out, learn the things that bring me back, and then have more capacity to choose to do that when I notice I'm being taken out, to bring myself back, notice when I'm being taken out, to bring myself back. So this is the practice, this is the learning. And if you practice this and you keep practicing this, you get better and better and better at it, and you just have more and more choice over over it. But it's really, I would say, a practice.